to our November luncheon. It is so nice to see such a wonderful, wonderful crowd here. We've got a great guest speaker today who is no stranger to any of you I know. She'll be introduced here in a little bit. Speaker Beth Harwell, we're so delighted to have you here in Hendersonville today. I have a number of announcements that I want to make at the beginning of the meeting so that all of you will have an opportunity to hear about these. This is the beginning of a really, really busy season for Hendersonville and all of Sumner County and the nation as far as that's concerned, because we have all of our folks back in school and football is back, and it seems like everything in the world starts in October, November, rushing up to the holiday season on into December. So if you will give me just a couple of minutes of your attention, I want to try to run through these things as quickly as I can on your behalf. One of the things I want to let you know is the Chamber is implementing a brand new program this year, and we have partnered with American Express, and they are partnering with us on their Small Business Saturday. And that Small Business Saturday is November the 30th. We've already had about a half a dozen businesses to contact us because they want to be a part of that, but I want to basically make sure that you all know that Small Business Saturday is the day right after Black Friday, because Thanksgiving is late this year, so we want everybody to shop local. That is a really, really big initiative for the Hendersonville Chamber. So we have a lot of different small retail businesses that are going to really put up the dog for all of you and have specials available. So please be looking for those ads in the newspaper and get out there and support those businesses. The other thing I want to tell you is our Chamber app is still out there. It's HBIL TN Biz, or you can go on and search for Hendersonville Chamber of Commerce. We continue to encourage people to get on and download the Chamber app. We are the first chamber in the region to have its own app, and we're so proud of that, so we want you to be a part of that. I also want you to know that the Mid-10 Business Voice, that we partnered with the National Chamber, Robertson County Chamber, and the Rutherford County Chamber, is alive and well. And I want to thank all of you for your participation in the recent survey. We have 118 responses. We're in the midst of developing our legislative agenda that will be ready by the end of November to move on along to folks like Speaker Harwell, so that she will know, and our representatives who are here in the audience today as well. So thank you again for your participation. Be on the lookout for those kinds of alerts that are coming your way so that you can respond based on your position on these kinds of issues that come your way. Want to let you know as well that the 7th annual Indian Lake Loop is happening on November the 28th, which is Thanksgiving morning. It will start at the streets of Indian Lake at 8 o'clock. It is a benefit to raise money for Compass. We are so proud of that activity and the opportunity that they have made available for education here in Hendersonville. With this particular run, they will have raised about $85,000 over the course of the last several years. And Bill Six called me this morning and said that he thought there were going to be about 2,200 runners there that day. So if you're planning to run, you better get out of the way of the other 2,100 lining up and make sure you've got a good place. The Relay for Life kickoff is on November the 12th from 6 to 8 at Hyatt Place. And one other thing, the Coke Drive United Way is still going on, and it's been extended to November the 15th. I also want you to be aware that a new member drive is going on with the Chamber. When we did our survey of our membership back in March, 96% of you said that you refer people as members of our Chamber. Well, that's wonderful, and we are delighted about that. But right now, what we also want to do is give you an incentive to continue to make those referrals and get those new members in. And what we're going to do pay you $25 during the month of November for everyone that you bring in as a paid member. So see Amanda for that if you've got any questions about it, but that new member drive is going on all through the month of November. And then the last thing I want to mention to you is right after this meeting at 1:15, we have some representatives from Community Health Alliance who are going to stay and make a presentation about the Affordable Care Act and questions that might be coming up for you as a small business owner, because I know that we all have questions. There are lots and lots of things going on about that, and so we're going to stay right here in this room for that opportunity. So you don't have to make a reservation for that. You just have to stay. So we would love for you to do that. And the last thing, if you will indulge me, to let you know that my good friend and many of your good friends' birthday is today. Miss Jean Scott has her 29th birthday, and I won't tell you how many times she's had it, but we want to wish her a happy birthday today. I'm so glad that you are sharing with us. It's okay, she's my good friend. It's fine. And so with that, I would invite Ted Bloodworth with Good Pasture Christian School to come for our pledge and invocation.
If you'll pause and please stand so we have the pledge and pause and invocation. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the blessings that you have given us this day and for ever being with us and blessing us. We, as Veterans Day is coming up within a week, we want to remember our service forces that are serving around the world to protect us and to take care of us as our freedoms there for them. Pray that you will continue to be with each one here in this community, each business that's represented, and the city of Hendersonville. Thank you now for this food that we have taken of and forgive us of our sins in Christ's name. Amen. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, members.
Hey, how are you? I didn't know you did this kind of
Now
thing.
it's our great pleasure to introduce the chair of our chamber, Lisa Byers, with the Daughter School of Hendersonville. Let's welcome Lisa to the podium.
Good afternoon and welcome to our luncheon. I have the honor of welcoming our new members, the members that have rejoined since we last gathered for lunch in October. We have 10 new members. Amerified Limited Apparel Services, Javier LaFontaine, At Last Day Spa and Salon, Brooke Engel, Denim Life Company Incorporated, Vance Home, Good Neighbor Mission, Stephanie Meadows, Hot Off the Griddle Productions, Frank Felicia, Karen Holmes, the Paint Lady, Karen Holmes, Samantha F. Barnett, Miriam, brand partner, Samantha Barnett, Strong Schools, Sybil Reagan, Vanderbilt Children's After Hours Clinic, Vicki Smith, and Vicki Sutton Cole. Please welcome our new members. It's great to see so many faces here today, and we're always happy to have our elected officials join us. So we'd like to recognize them today. If you're an elected official, please stand and introduce yourself.
William Lancaster, State Representative. Scott Foster, Mayor, welcome to town. Paul Good, Alderman, Ward 3, Hendersonville, County Commission, District 2.
Anthony Holford, Sumner County Executive. John Ames, Alderman, Hendersonville, Tennessee.
John Isbell, Assessor of Property.
Frank Freeman, County Commissioner.
Val Whitaker, registered deed.
Tom Long, Sumner County School Board.
Thank you for joining us today. And now we financial partners. Please welcome Gene and Scott.
Okay, what an embarrassing day. Not only am I really old today, but I left my glasses on my desk. So, my arm is being distracted. It's my great pleasure today to introduce our speaker. Beth Harwell is the current Speaker of the House representing the State House District 56. She's the first female speaker in both Tennessee and the entire Southeast. Beth is a strong advocate for tougher sexual abuse laws, victims' rights, welfare reform, children's issues, and most notably education. She was prime sponsor of the state's public charter school law, having been an advocate for charter schools for many years. A friend of small business, Beth was twice awarded the Guardian of Small Business Award from the National Federation of Independent Businesses. In addition to her legislative accomplishments, Beth served as the chair of the state Republican Party from 2001 to 2004. During that time, she was instrumental in the Republicans taking control of the state Senate for the first time in 140 years. While serving as chair, she also contributed to George W. Bush's presidential campaign and served as a Bush pioneer. Representative Harwell has won numerous awards, including the Howard Bradley Legislative Leadership Award, the American Cancer Society Legislative Leadership Award, 2013 Conservation Legislator Award, Champion for Children Award, and the Junior League of Tennessee 2012 Legislator of the Year. Harwell received her Bachelor of Arts degree from Luncheon, her PhD from Vanderbilt, and she has been an assistant professor in political science at Belmont, and she and her husband Sam have 3 children, Allie, Sam, and Tucker. Thank you.
Well, thank you all so much. What a pleasure it is to be with you today and enjoy this good food and fellowship. It is good to reacquaint myself with some old friends and meet some new people here in your area. So thank you for letting me have a few moments of your time today. I'm always honored to be in front of a group, and I'm always challenged when I look out and see my own colleagues that are with me. William Lambert and Courtney Rogers. And when the question and answer period comes, I'll be more than happy to share a little time with you up here if you would like to come up and help me with the question time period. Well, listen, I'm very happy to report one thing to you today. Your state government and your state legislature is not anything like your Congress, okay? A little sigh of relief, and I think it's a very important note to distinguish between state government and what we see going on in the federal government. And I'd like to talk a little bit about that today with you, the time I have, and then I'll allocate some time for some questions from you all, which is where I can always learn from what's on your mind and hearts. You know, when I was fortunate enough by my colleagues to be elected speaker, I took it as a very serious challenge. And I thought to myself, I want to prove that we can govern and govern well in the state of Tennessee. And in conjunction and working with our wonderful Governor Bill Haslam and your Lieutenant Governor Ron Ramsey, I wanted us to feel a sharp difference here in the state of Tennessee. And we've succeeded in doing that. Just last week, I attended the Speakers Conference, which is all the speakers from all other states in the nation gathered in one room, just like this. And there is no press present, there are no staff people there, it is only the speakers sitting in a round table. And of our 50 states, 48 states were present. And I just have to tell you, I was extremely proud to be from the great state of Tennessee, because I had so many wonderful things to do for it. When I was given the honor to be speaker, I told my colleagues that as long as I was speaker, every member of this body was going to be treated with respect, and with dignity, and with fairness. And that while I was speaker, there was a time for politics, and heaven knows you just heard a little bit about me. I was state Republican Party chairman for 4 years, so obviously I'm a partisan Republican. But I said, when you are elected to this chamber and you walk through those hallowed doors, you leave politics behind, and you do the best you can for this state. So we set aside our partisan differences. We even set aside our regional differences that at times can be greater than our political differences, believe it or not, in the Tennessee General Assembly, because there is a world of difference between a West Tennessee Democrat and an East Tennessee Republican. There is a world of difference from someone from inner city Memphis and some of our more rural areas. But I'm proud to report to you, as Speaker, I have seen good people on both sides of the aisle, from all parts of this nation, this state, put aside their regional differences, put aside their partisan differences, in order to do the right thing for our state. And I think if we saw a little more of that at the federal level, we would be much better off as a nation. The other thing that I said to my members of the body is that I want them, before they vote on any piece of legislation, to put that legislation through a litmus test. And that's what I want to share with you today, the 3 questions that I said to them you need to ask yourself before you vote yes or no before any proposed law will come before you. The first question was this: does it increase the size of government or not? You know, the great Ronald Reagan once said this, and I'll quote from him: "No government ever voluntarily reduces itself in size. Government programs, ever launched, never disappear. Actually, a government program is the nearest thing to eternal life we'll ever see on this earth." Well, I challenge my members of the General Assembly to prove the great Ronald Reagan wrong on that particular point. And we've done just that in the state of Tennessee. You know, we know that government's best that governs least. And so what is the proper role of state government? And then let's perform that role well. And since the governor has its inauguration, and since we have achieved our status in the General Assembly, we have in fact reduced the size of government. We have limited the number of state employees. We have consolidated a number of boards and commissions, making many of them part-time and thus reducing the cost to you as a taxpayer. We have overhauled our civil service system, which was so critical to do. We were actually employing compensating our great state employees based on the number of years of service instead of based on their performance. And we have started the process of changing how we evaluate and thus how we reward our wonderful state employees. We have done a top-to-bottom review of each state department. There's still more work to be done in that area. And we took the initiative under David Willard, our treasurer, to not wait until we were in a crisis mode like some of our cities have done, like Detroit and many others. We've taken a head start and said, okay, our pension program at the state level is solid. But let's forecast out for the next 5 to 10 years. Where are we going to be? And let's make sure that we have a plan that we can sustain over the long haul. And so we moved to a defined benefit program, one that I'm very proud to say I was able to report on at that speakers conference. And you just compare that to what Illinois is facing, California is facing, many other states. I could go on and on. I'm so proud of what we were able to do by sound management and planning. We did that while we balanced our state budget. And again, I'll tell you, there's a reason why they don't balance the budget at the federal level. And the reason is it's hard work. I took that so for granted before I actually got into the speaker's position. But as speaker, I had to bring that finance committee, particularly my subcommittee, in that room on many occasions and say, you know what, you're just not going to fund that this year. You can't. That's hard to do. Because all those programs, all those ideas on how the state should spend their money basically have a lot of good to them, but you just can't do it all. And you need to know where to pull the line and say, this is where we're stopping. You can't fund any additional new programs. We were able to balance our budget. But more important, I think, to everyone in this room is we were fortunate in our great state to have a little bit of additional revenue. I was talking to some of you before the program began. You were talking about how the real estate market's coming back. We really are doing much better than a lot of other states in the economy. And because of that, we were able to enjoy record amounts of revenue coming into our state. Now, rather taking the usual approach that I think Washington, D.C. does, which was, okay, how are we going to spend this new money? We said to ourselves, how are we going to take this new money and return it to its rightful owner, the taxpayer of the state? And so we, in fact, reduced and cut your taxes to the tune of $51 million last year was returned to you as taxpayers. We lowered your sales tax on food. We took the whole income tax and increased the exemption for seniors. And something that was near and dear to my heart, I have actually been trying to do this since 1992, we have begun the phase out of the inheritance tax in the state of Tennessee. And I think that's a wonderful thing. By the year 2017, we will completely have done away with the inheritance tax in the state. That's good news. you. I mean, it's devastating when you own a small business. At the time of the business owner's death, the people that should rightly inherit that, oftentimes his family members, have to look for ways to sell that business in order to pay their taxes. And the same is true with many of our great farms across the state. The farmland had to be sold in order to pay off the taxes. And we did the fiscally sound and responsible thing. Everybody says they're against taxes. But what I was so proud of in the General Assembly is we looked for a fiscally responsible way to phase that out so that we can budget accordingly, because we will reduce our revenue to the state by ending that tax. So that by the time 2017 rolls around, we will still be on good financial sound footing as a state, but we'll have eliminated that burdensome tax. All the while, we reduced our rainy day fund. We had to, under Governor Bredes's administration, and rightfully so, he had to do it. We dipped into our rainy day fund, and we have taken time to restore that and bring it back up to where it should be. Again, I contrast that to what I see not only on the federal level, which is, of course, devastating and bringing our nation to its knees, but I also compare that to other states. The speaker from the state of New Jersey told me that in New Jersey, their debt on their highway program alone has reached $14.3 billion. That's how much debt New Jersey is carrying on just transportation program. And I said, well, what does that mean for your state? And he said, well, it means that for every penny of new revenue that we bring into the state, it all will be spent on just paying off the interest on our debt. Now think about that. You can't sustain that kind of management. And I'm proud to say that we do not have that in the state of Tennessee. I was honored to go with Governor Haslam up to New York, in which we went before the bond rating boards. And I was talking to someone a little earlier about Senator Henry, and he was one of the early members, a Democrat, but from Davidson County, who really taught me what I needed to learn about bond ratings and the whole interest part of the state's inner workings. And I was so proud that he did, because it was the first time I had ever been to a bond rating. So for some of you, I'm sure have already done this type of thing. But it was fascinating to stand and hear the questions they asked us. But we walked out of that, and I said, asked the governor, I said, how do you feel, Governor? He said, I feel really good. Well, you know the story. We received a AAA bond rating. And Fitch Ratings recognized the volunteer state as having the least indebtedness of any state. Without electing good people into the General Assembly and making tough decisions for you as Tennessee. Well, the second question I ask my members to always ask themselves, first is, does it increase the size of government? Because we don't want to go down that path. The second was, does it make it easier to own and operate a business in the state of Tennessee? I think that's a very critical question before you vote on any piece of legislation. Are we making it easier to be a business owner, or are we going to make it more difficult to be a business owner? You know, I am married to Sam Harwell, as I said in my introduction, and Sam is a small business owner. He employs right now 17 people in Middle Tennessee. And I was leaving to go speak to a group, and as I was leaving one morning, I rather haughtily looked back at my husband Sam, a business owner, and I said to him, Sam, there's one thing I, a state legislator, could do for you, a small business owner. What would it be? And he very quickly looked back at me, threw up his hand and said, leave me alone. If you do something for me, it usually means that it's another piece of paperwork I have to fill out. If you do something against me, it means another tax or fee that I have to pay. Please, just leave me alone. Well, your Tennessee General Assembly understands that philosophy. We understand that government doesn't create jobs. It is the private sector that creates jobs. What we do in the public sector is create an environment that is conducive to you creating those jobs. And so as much as possible, we put the bare minimum of regulations that we need to put in place. And in addition to that, we provide or attempt to provide a proper infrastructure so that you can transport your goods and services across our great state. And then right along with that, we do what we can in providing job training programs so that we are presenting to you an educated, well-educated workforce. Because we have taken that type of attitude in state government, again, I'll just quote you from a few experts outside of Tennessee saying what about Tennessee? Well, Chief Executive Magazine said it was the 4th best state in the nation to to create an own business. Area Development Magazine named Tennessee the top state for doing business. And this summer, Business Facility Magazine named Tennessee the #1 state in the nation for automotive manufacturing. So we have a reputation. Again, I go back when I was in that room with all those other speakers. They were coming up to me saying, man, you got it right in Tennessee. It's looking good there in your state. What are you doing? And that's a wonderful attribute to our governor and again to our general assembly. And that all brings me to my third and last question that I've asked my members of the General Assembly to always ask themselves before they make that vote. And that is this. Does it continue to move us forward in education reform? Or not? If you as a taxpayer took the time to look at the budget in a pie chart and you saw the slice of money that is spent on education, I think you would be surprised at how much of your tax dollars goes to education. So you as a taxpayer should demand a good education system. But here's something that is probably more critical to me and also touches my heart a little bit more. The children of this state deserve nothing less. We have a real obligation to the next generation to provide them an education so that they can compete in what is a globally interdependent world. And we are making great strides, and it has not come without change. It's very difficult for any system to change. I know this is especially true because I come out of the academic world. Change is tough for them. But it has been time. And we've done some great things. We put some evaluation systems in place so that we know which teachers are doing a good job, which teachers need additional help in order to bring them up, their skill level up so that they are good teachers, and exactly how are we performing. And let's not sugarcoat it anymore. It was the chamber itself that actually came and said, you're not telling the truth. There's not truth in advertising in our education system here in Tennessee. We say we're doing well, but when our children are compared to states surrounding us, we're not doing so well. So we have really upped the standard in our education system, and you know what? It is paying off. I just want to tell you from the year 2010 to the year 2011, nearly 91,000 more students are at or above grade level in math. The most critical skill we can give these young children is their ability in math, and we are making strides in that as well. In that same time frame, nearly 52,000 additional students are at or above grade level in science. So we are making great strides in our school systems, and we can't ever, ever let up. There's no turning back. And so we got to keep moving forward in education reform, which is, I know, what we are committed to do. So I report to you the state of the state in the Tennessee, and I'm very proud to say we are doing a very good job. I concluded with my members on that morning when I was sworn in as Speaker now, my second term, reminding them of one last thing. We need to remind ourselves of those great principles, those 3 litmus tests that they always should take when they look at a piece of legislation. And finally, I said to them that I think that there will be nothing that can hold us back as a state and as a legislative body, as long as we remember we were always called to govern with humility. Ultimately, we are servants. We are given this opportunity, this challenge for a very small period of time in our lives and in our state's history. And we must always govern with the utmost in our minds, knowing that the citizens are watching us and that they deserve our very best and that we always serve with a servant's heart. With that, I'll be glad to answer any questions or take any comments that you all might have for me on what's happening here in the great state of Tennessee. Or otherwise, too. I'll talk politics, we'll talk national, anything you want to ask me. Let's talk. Yes.
Thank you for coming today at Hendersonville. To your third point regarding education, what part of education improvement in Tennessee do you think that school choice legislation has? And then if it does have a part, what type of bill do you think would benefit our students the most?
The question was regarding school choice and what role that should play in our education reform as we move forward. And as it was pointed out, I'm a strong advocate of public charter schools. I believe in public education. I believe it's in the foundation of what has made our nation different from other nations in the world. I mean, although we have our problems, no doubt about it, if you travel across to other countries in the world, where do they all want to come to college? They all want to get to the United States. So we can put ourselves down. We really don't need to be. We have a lot to be proud of in what we have provided as far as education in our nation. But we could do better and can do better. And choice will be a part of that. Public charter schools to me are critical because they are public. They can't discriminate against who they let into their schools. They must accept all children. But they are free from some of the regulations, both local and state, that we have put on our traditional schools. Now, people say, well, they're so great, why don't you just take those regulations off of all schools and let everybody come on the first? Well, here's the answer. Public charter schools, and I've been in every one of them that exist in Nashville, and I've been in most of the ones that are existing in Memphis. Most of the time they center around inner city areas. They have longer school days. They start very early in the morning, and they don't let their children out normally till 5:30 or 6 o'clock at night. Because these are children that just need additional time in the classroom. And most of these children don't go to home like that perhaps more accustomed to. The second thing they do is they have Saturday school. Every other Saturday they're in school. The third thing they do is they alter their curriculum extensively. So they're not under any regulation that they have to have an art teacher, they have to have this class or that class. They're said, create your curriculum the way these children need their curriculum to be designed. So the public charter school that I'm most familiar with in Nashville spends all morning on reading. They do nothing but reading. And all afternoon on math. Because these children are so that they have got to be just have additional time spent in these curriculum areas. And so that's what a public charter school does. It can cater to a special need child that our traditional public schools can't, haven't been able to. So I'm a firm believer in those schools. As far as the whole issue of voucher and taking money with you to a private school, I'm not philosophically opposed to that, but I will say that the program would have to be carefully designed because there are a lot of other questions that exist there. Many of our private schools, excellent private schools, and I've gone to private schools, my children are in a private school. A lot of them also are affiliated with a particular faith. And, we do have a tradition in our state and our nation to be very careful that our money, state money, does not go into promoting or supporting one religious affiliation or another. So we would have to be very careful with how we would design the program. I'm not opposed to them, but I think there's a lot of thought that needs to go into it. Another question, comment? Is this easy on me?
Speaker, your comment on education reform, one of the tenets of education reform was the development of the Tennessee report card, and it was released last week. And I'm pleased to report, as part of that Tennessee report card, not only did Sumner County schools do very well, but your alma mater of Lewiston Union University, where I serve, as well as UT Knoxville, were identified as exemplary teacher preparation schools in this state. So both private and public institutions are working very hard for and teacher effectiveness and student achievement in this state.
That's absolutely true. And you do have a lot to be proud of in your schools here in Sumner County. I know Deborah, my dear friend Deborah Magner, works very hard on your project out here. It's doing such a great job. You do have wonderful schools, and quite frankly, a little bit to my dismay as a Davidson County legislator, because a lot of folks move out of Davidson County into Sumner County or Williamson County, as you well know, in order to attend your school system. So you have a lot to be proud of, and I encourage you to continue to do good work here. But that just means we need to bring up the standards in other places as well. And, I say this again, coming from the standpoint of being a mother. I have 3 children, and I will tell you, all 3 children learn differently. All 3 of my children came from the same mother and father, same home life, and they just learned differently. And so this whole idea that all children need to go to the same type of school, go the same, that's just I think of the past, really. So we need to have our school systems designed more around how do individual children learn? What do we know about the mind and the development of the mind that we didn't know way back then? Yes, sir.
Following up on that, I know, Speaker, you're also a graduate of Peabody,
yes,
which has been ranked for the last 4 years in a row the #1 education school in the country. And you briefly touched on how the legislature is plugging into some brain power just down the road over Vanderbilt's Peabody School as you all work on education issues.
Well, of course, they do a lot of research for us and what works and what doesn't work. I would love to see even more take place. You mentioned David Lipscomb. David Lipscomb has applied to, and I would like to see our metro government in Nashville approve their public charter school idea. David Lipscomb, which has the finest education program I think I've ever seen, would like to start a public charter school and then use some of the ideas, some of the new things they're learning about how children learn in that. And I would love to see Vanderbilt do that. Vanderbilt actually in Peabody did do that. Peabody University, way back when, had probably the first school of that nature in the university school. That was a demonstration school, and it was so successful that it became the University School of Nashville, and it's where all the Vanderbilt professors and everyone sends their children. And it's probably one of the finest private schools we have going in Davidson County. So there is so much we learn. I'd like to see less of a disconnect between higher education and what's happening in K-12. It's almost like this is higher education, we don't do anything in K-12 and vice versa. When you think about it, it really should be a much more flourishing program. Yes, sir.
Thanks again for coming.
Absolutely.
You just mentioned kind of a hot button for me too, and I agree. I think there is a disconnect between higher education and K-12, but there's also another gap there as well, which has to do with technical training. And we're working with a group here in Sumner County called the Industry Education Coalition, trying to create opportunities for high school students to see that technical careers are valid careers, that you don't necessarily have to go for a four-year degree. If you get good technical training, you can start out with a decent job at a decent wage more quickly. Are you familiar with other programs around the state that are similar to that? And can you just talk in general about what we're doing in terms of workforce development?
That's a great question. I mean, you're absolutely right in that, to be honest with you, I have a degree from Vanderbilt, okay? So Vanderbilt's an excellent school, right? And had my parents not helped me financially to support that, I guarantee you I would not have been able to pay off what Vanderbilt cost me in my years of teaching and development, okay? I mean, it's amazing, and even to this day, I don't make near as much as I was telling Dad when my sister's visiting from Colorado. I actually have an electrician doing some work in my house, and he makes a lot more money than I will ever make teaching at Belmont or even being in the legislature. You know what? That's great. If you have a technical skill and you can go to a school and you can learn a technical skill, and you can move to owning your own business and employing other people, and you should make a tremendous living. It's a myth that everyone needs to go to college. We perpetuated that myth to our own demise. I really believe that we have an opportunity to beef up our technical programs and really serve our nation better. That is where the jobs are in the future. They just are. And the governor did put an additional $52 million into technical education this year, and primarily in the equipment that's needed, because the jobs have changed from the days when you and I were in technical schools were available. So we've had to go into our community college, our technical schools, and look at their welding programs and look at their IT programs and really begin to put the funding there to get the equipment where it needs to be. A part of that is really going to be more of an outreach with the business world. So we've been like at Volkswagen. We've gone into Volkswagen and coming into Chattanooga and say, okay, what do you want our technical school here in the Chattanooga area to be teaching? And will you be a part of supplying some of the equipment and some of the teachers to help build up our skilled workforce? So there's going to be so much more collaboration than it needs to be in the future. I mean, just gone are the days when really the average family can support what it would cost to have 3 kids in college all at one time. And that's extremely expensive for the average family. We're just going to have to work on it. Anything else? Yes.
You talked about small business, and your second question, your litmus test was about what does it do with small business. And your husband said, leave us alone. Well, I agree with the sentiment that there's some things that need to be done before we want you to leave us alone. I get pieces of paper, it seems like every other week. Some come from the state revenue department. I've called the revenue department several times, asked about sales tax collection. It seems like I get different answers every time I call. So there is a very convoluted system. It's very difficult right now. So leaving us alone from this point forward is not acceptable in my opinion. What do you have in mind to help release us from all this amount of paperwork?
And I do appreciate that question. Another thing, my husband owed something, and the Secretary of State notified him. He said, but I paid this back to the Department of Revenue. And there was a disconnect. The Department of Revenue was not telling the Secretary of State what information they had. So they actually had the audacity to tell my husband, well, you need to come down here and show us what you gave to the Department of Revenue so we can take this off. And he says, Don't you all work for the same governor? Couldn't you all figure out a way to share that information? That's exactly what you're talking about. And if you can give me specific ways or specific paperwork, I will take it directly to them. Our Secretary of State has actually started an office, just one, that does nothing but report to small business owners. And you can call their hotline and say, this is what I got in the mail today, this is why it's unnecessary paperwork. And they're looking for ways, and believe me, the General Assembly, if it's a law, we'll look for a way to alter that law. If it's an undue pressure. Most of the time, it's just bureaucratic red tape. And as I've said many a time to some government employees, but we're not Washington, D.C., and we're not going to act like that. If it's just some regulation you have in place, it's not a law, a regulation can be altered, and it can better meet the needs of the citizen. So the citizen doesn't report to us, we report to the citizen. So we really want to have that mindset. If you can give me a specific example of something I could bring before them, I'll be more than happy to do that, or go with you as you present. Because we want to have a really pro-business. I have to tell you one story about my daughter, and this is a little farce, I don't mean it to be. But I actually was out visiting my daughter, who's at the University of Colorado Boulder, and she is majoring in business. She also wants to be a small business owner. She's majoring in business out at the University of Colorado Boulder, and I went out to visit her on parent weekend. And the faculty had a little reception for all the parents. And so I thought I would be in my glory, since I'm in an academic, I would know exactly all the right questions to ask, right? So Allie's majoring in business. I went up to her business professor, or intro to business class, teacher, and I said, could you please tell me what is your overall goal and objective for the introduction to business course that you're teaching here? And he looked at me and says, well, it's the same goal and objective we have for the entire Department of Business here at the University of Colorado Boulder. And I said, oh, really? Well, what's that? And he said, well, we want to teach the next set of business owners and entrepreneurs that they should minimize profit and maximize social consciousness and goodness. And I went, what? And he repeated it to me again. We want to minimize profit and maximize social consciousness and awareness. And I couldn't, I bit my tongue for a little bit, and then I thought I couldn't stand it any longer, and I said, you know what, I'll just have to tell you. I'm so glad her dad didn't have that same philosophy, or we wouldn't be paying her tuition and your salary, right? They'll be there tomorrow, so come join us and see what you're missing. We do have another big after hours in November. The Beehive and Busy Bee are going to go together and do a joint session. So be looking on your nice chamber app that I know you're going to download pretty later today. So keep all the events on your calendar. We're going to have a great program for the next luncheon. We'll meet right here December 5th. We're in works with the National Symphony. They're looking to bring a little ensemble to perform for you that day. But we know that Hendersonville Christian Academy's got a little program to share with us that day as well. So be sure to make your reservations because we don't want you to miss that great
luncheon to end, will be probably about the last event of 2013, which is great. The business showcase is probably the longest standing event that the chamber has done. It was going on long before I ever came, and you know I've been here for a long time. So those of you who have participated know it's typically February or March, but we threw a monkey wrench on you this time, so be watching your email communications because we moved it to January. So January 16th, it will take the place of that business after hours, and we'll be right here in this room. Sponsorships and booths are available now, so talk to us on staff. Y'all may be missing Cassie, but she's working from home, so don't think that you can't talk to her. You can email her, Cassie@HendersonvilleChamber.com, or check with any of us on staff, and we'll make sure you get the information you need for that great event. And if you've not attended an orientation session, we encourage you to do so. It's a wealth of information. There's so much more to chamber membership than just leads and luncheons, and we want to go over and make sure that you understand how to make the most of your membership. So if you have not attended one of these sessions, every month we will hold those at our office. Amanda does a great job leading us through all of that information. It's a great time for network, and it's a free lunch. So there is a free lunch if you make your reservations. We don't have display tables this month, but next month will be another really large luncheon. So if you want to get your business in front of a crowd about this size, I encourage you to contact me. I'll tell you how to set up. We can have up to 5 tables, and we put them right along that window right there. So see me at the end of this, and I'll be happy to get you signed up for next month. And if you didn't put your card in this bowl, sorry, you're not going to be eligible for these 2 great door prizes. But we got 2. And the winner of Signature Cleaners Dry Cleaning is Charles Alexander with the Tennessee Small Business Development Center. Jen's Pizza, who is our gracious host every month at those orientations, they're going to give away a gift certificate today as well, and Lindsay Ralston with the Ralston firm. This meeting is adjourned. Take time to network, and then if you'll come over to this side of the room, we'll get you set up for our next presentation.